My name is Isabella, and my story begins at 17 when my life was being decided for me even before I had say senior year of high school, an age where most kids are dreaming of the future. I was caught in a battle. I couldn't win, a tug of war between my desires and the dream my parents had meticulously designed for me. They had their vision, their script for my life: excel academically, go to college, land a stable office job. That was their dream, not mine. I wasn't the model student. I didn't always bring home straight A's, but my mind was far from ordinary. I had a creativity that ran through my veins, a desire to create, to build with my hands. Sitting in class, listening to monotonous lectures was suffocating. My heart wasn't in it. It never had been. I wanted to study interior design, I told them. My mother nearly exploded. It was as if I had told her I wanted to walk off a cliff. "A terrible choice," she snapped. "You need a degree, something real, something you can build a life on." She didn't just question my choice, she condemned it. "What can you even do with a job like that? You'll end up a failure." Those words hung in the air, suffocating the very dream I dared to voice. Father always, the stoic figure in the family, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His silence screamed louder than any words. He worked tirelessly in the factory, believing in the power of a degree and the promise of stability. I tried to make him see, tried to explain how my heart didn't lie in his world. But he couldn't see past the life he had built for me. The one that, for him, was the only road to success. The frustration built up. My mind churned with every day I spent in a life that wasn't mine. I couldn't breathe under their expectations. I had tried. I had conformed, put on the mask, but nothing fit. I was drowning in their plans for me, a plan that smothered my own aspirations, my own joy. So, 6 weeks before graduation, I made my decision. I walked up to them one night and told them the truth. I had been accepted into a short-term interior design course. It wasn't college, but it was a start, a partial scholarship earned through the projects I had done. My heart pounded as I spoke the words, tumbling out, each one heavier than the last. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My mother's face crumbled, not with worry, but with disbelief. And then it cracked tears. Not for me. No, they were for the future she had imagined for me, that was now slipping through her fingers. My father didn't cry. No, his rage spoke volumes. "Do you even understand what opportunity means? Do you know what you're throwing away?" He yelled, his voice low but sharp, cutting through the air. "We've given you everything. Don't embarrass us. Do you even care about us?" I tried to explain, to justify my decision, but my words, fragile and unsure, couldn't heal the wound I had just opened. The helplessness surged in my chest, and then without thinking, the words left my lips. Words I never thought I'd say. "I can't live my life according to your dreams. I'm old enough to make my own decisions." The room fell silent, the tension so thick I could hardly breathe. Anger and hurt swirled between us, words flying sharp and raw. We were all in pain, but none of us was willing to give in, to back down. Finally, my father, his face twisted with rage, spoke through gritted teeth. "If you want to do things your way, then leave. Don't come back. Not ever." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart shattered in that moment, the foundation of everything I thought was my world crumbling beneath me. A part of me screamed to retreat, to beg for forgiveness, to go back to the safety of their approval. But the other part of me, the part that had been silenced for so long, whispered, "Enough." I walked upstairs, grabbed the essentials, packed a small bag, and took the money I had saved. About 1,500 I went downstairs, each step heavier than the last. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes, but they weren't the tears of concern. They were tears of abandonment, of the shattered dream she had for me. "You'll come back," she said, her voice laced with mockery. "In a month, you'll be begging us to take you in." Her words were poison, but they didn't reach me. Not anymore. My father, standing by the door, didn't speak, just glared at me, his eyes filled with disappointment, and then the door slammed shut behind me. I stood there in the front yard of the house I grew up in. It wasn't home anymore. The house that once felt like a refuge now felt like a cage. The rain began to fall, a harsh reminder of what I had just done, of what I was about to face. But in that moment, I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. I walked away, my steps slow, unsure I was, walking down a road that stretched ahead. A road I couldn't see a future. I couldn't imagine. I was alone. I put on a brave face, walking with my head high. But inside, I was empty. For the first time, I realized what it meant to lose everything. No family, no home, no safety net, just the cold, harsh reality of stepping out into the unknown. And in the silence that followed, all I could think about were the dreams my parents had for me, the dreams that were never mine. "You'll regret it, Isabella." Those words echoed in my mind, a constant hum of doubt. My mother would say it every time the subject came up. "We can't live our whole lives in dead-end jobs. Think about it. Your whole family worked so hard to give you this opportunity. You can't ruin everything just because of some passing interest." I could see it in her eyes, the fear that I was throwing away everything they had worked for, everything they believed in. But what they didn't see was how suffocating it all was. They had their vision for me, but it wasn't my life. Every time I brought up my dream, my father's face hardened, his eyes clouded with disappointment. He didn't need to say much. His silence was a constant reprimand, as if my existence was a failure in his eyes. "Is that really what you want to be, Isabella?" he'd ask, his voice thick with disdain. "A regular worker? How do you think people will see you?" Every word cut deeper than the last. For so long, I carried that guilt, the guilt of not meeting their expectations, of not being the daughter they envisioned. But the longer I lived in that suffocating space, the more I realized that I couldn't keep sacrificing myself to appease them. It wasn't just an interest. It was my life. And that's when I made the choice that tore everything apart. I told them I wanted to study interior design, that I had been accepted into a program with a scholarship. It wasn't a prestigious university, but it was my path. My heart raced, each word heavier than the last, as if I were confessing some great sin. The change in my mother's face was immediate. She didn't worry about me. She didn't care about my future. She cried because I was betraying the plan she had for me. The tears weren't born from love or concern, but from loss. She felt let down. She couldn't understand why I would choose a path without guarantees, without the security of what they knew. And my father, his reaction was more visceral. He slammed his fist on the table with such force that it made me flinch. His words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. "You're ruining your life. Isabella, do you even understand that?" He didn't see me. He didn't see my desire to create, to build something with my own hands. He saw a daughter who had failed him. "We can't accept you becoming some low-level worker. You're making everything harder, not just for yourself, but for the whole family." Those words didn't just sting, they burned. My heart shattered. I wanted to explain, to make them see that this was my passion, my calling. But with every word I spoke, their anger grew. They couldn't hear me. They couldn't see me. And then my father said the one thing that broke me completely. If you're not going to listen, you can leave right now. That was it. The moment I knew it was over. There was nothing left for me here. I walked upstairs in a daze, grabbing the bag I had packed long ago, the one with the bare essentials, and stuffed a few more things into it. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The silence between us was deafening enough. My mother called after me, her voice strained a mix of disbelief and anger. You'll come back in a month. You'll apologize. You'll see you're wrong. But I didn't look back, not even once. The words she had said, you'll come crawling back, stung like fresh wounds, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let their expectations, their control, dictate my life anymore. The first few days were a blur. Corey, my only friend, gave me a place to stay, but I couldn't rely on him forever. I needed to stand on my own to prove to myself more than anyone else that I wasn't a failure. I had $200, money I had scraped together from part-time jobs, but it was barely enough to get by. I found a job at a hardware store and worked weekends, washing dishes at a diner. Long hours, exhausting days. My body aching. My mind weary. But every night, as I collapsed into the tiny rented room, I reminded myself, this was mine. This was my choice. There were moments, though, when the weight of it all crushed me. The loneliness, the uncertainty, the feeling of being an outsider in my own life. I wanted to give up, to go back home, to apologize, to let everything go. But then I would remember my mother's words, the ones that had cut the deepest. You'll come crawling back in a month. That thought kept me going. No, I wouldn't crawl back, not because I was stubborn, but because I knew I couldn't live under their control any longer. I couldn't go back to a life where my every move was dictated by their dreams. I had no guarantees. Nothing but my own resolve. But that was enough. It had to be. As time passed, my life began to find its rhythm. Slowly, I learned to navigate the world on my own. I managed to buy my own food, pay my rent, and carry the weight of my life without leaning on anyone. I learned how to budget, how to cook, how to do everything my parents had always done for me. Life was hard, but at least it felt like I was moving forward. Then one day, while I was stocking shelves at the hardware store, my phone rang. I saw her name flash across the screen. My heart skipped. It was my mother. I paused, unsure of whether to answer. The bitterness from the past still clung to me, making my stomach tighten. But I couldn't ignore it, so I picked up. Isabella, are you okay? Her voice was soft, almost tentative. The anger, the resentment that I had become so used to hearing from her, it wasn't there. I braced myself, cold unease creeping up my spine. I'm fine, I replied, my voice betraying none of the storm raging inside me. I had learned to be cold to keep my emotions in check. But I couldn't keep the discomfort at bay. She sighed on the other end, and then the words I had feared came. Your father lost his job. We don't know what to do. Can you help us out a little? Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. After everything, after the years of controlling my life, now they wanted my help. They hadn't cared about me, hadn't thought about me in so long, and yet now, when they were in need, they reached out. A part of me, a small, weak part, wanted to help. After all, they were still my parents. But the resentment bubbled up thick and heavy. They only remembered me when it was convenient for them, when they needed something. I can't help you, Mom, I said firmly, my voice now laced with a calmness I didn't even feel. I'm taking care of myself now. There was a long silence on the other end, and then she said, almost in a whisper, I understand, honey. I just want you to know that we still love you. I felt a surge of anger, disappointment, and something else, something too complex to unravel. I had fought tooth and nail, worked 2 jobs, struggled to find my way, and now they wanted my help as though everything was normal again, as though they hadn't spent years pushing me away, dismissing my dreams. I wanted to scream, but all I could muster was a cold, final, "I'll call you back." Then I ended the call. It wasn't the first time I'd been faced with a difficult decision, but it was the one that left me hollow. The conflict inside me was suffocating. I had fought so hard to break free, to live my life on my terms. But I still loved them, despite everything. And now I was left with a choice that had no easy answer. In the days that followed, I kept moving forward, even as I carried the weight of that conversation. It was as if I were walking down a dark road, fog heavy around me, with no family support. No one to share the burden. I was alone in this. Every day felt like a battle. I woke up tired, every muscle in my body sore from the long hours, but I couldn't stop. Stopping meant falling, and I couldn't let myself fall. 2 jobs, hardware store in the afternoons, waitressing on weekends at the coffee shop. Everyone else, my age, had their lives, their carefree days. They went to movies, hung out with friends, spent time with family. But not me. I had none of that. My life was a blur of exhaustion, filled with the endless noise of work and assignments and a constant ache of loneliness. There were times when I saw pictures of my friends, their families gathered around a dinner table laughing, sharing stories that longed for something as simple as a conversation with my mother, or the look of disapproval from my father. It hurt more than I could put into words. I missed them, even though I couldn't return. Every time I spoke to my mother, I could hear the tremble in her voice, the longing for me to come back. But I couldn't. I had made my choice, and as much as it hurt, I had to stick with it. I wasn't going back. I couldn't live in their world anymore. I couldn't go back to the place where I was, nothing more than an extension of their expectations. It wasn't because I was stubborn. It was because I had fought too hard to find my own way, and I couldn't let them win. Not this time. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I wondered if I was doing the right thing. It was so easy to question my path when everything felt uncertain, when the weight of my choices felt too heavy. But then, I would remember how it felt to walk out that door, to leave the life they had planned for me behind. That was freedom, and it was worth every sacrifice. I wanted my own life. A life where I made the decisions, where I didn't answer to anyone but myself. Even on the hardest mornings, when the sunlight barely filtered through the small window of my room, remembered the dreams. I had dreams of becoming an interior designer, of working in a field where creativity was my only limit. I hadn't reached that dream yet, but I knew every step I took, no matter how small, brought me closer. I worked hard. I kept pushing forward. There was no time to look back. No time to dwell on what could have been. I focused on what I could control: my work, my training, and the small projects I took on when I could. It was hard, exhausting, but it was mine, and that was all that mattered. One afternoon, as I was taking an order at the coffee shop, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from my mother. "Are you okay? I miss you." For the first time in months, I felt something inside me shift, something soft, something I thought I had lost, but I didn't reply. Not yet. The silence between us was thick, but it was a silence I needed. A silence where I could breathe without their expectations, without the weight of their love pulling me back. Not yet. I had made my choice, and I was sticking to it. I knew I had to stay strong. Answering that message would be too easy, too tempting. It would pull me back into the world I had worked so hard to escape. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my finger hovering over the keyboard, but I couldn't give in. I couldn't let myself be dragged backward, no matter how much I missed them. No matter how many times I wanted to go back to the comfort of their voices, their expectations, I was too tired. Tired of being controlled. Tired of being shaped into something I was never meant to be. I had come too far. I had to keep moving forward, even if it meant feeling alone, even if it meant pushing through the crushing weight of loneliness. Eventually, I picked up the phone and typed a simple response. "I'm fine. Mom, I'm working and learning. I'll be okay." My fingers trembled slightly as I pressed send. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to reassure her. Enough to reassure me. I would go back one day, not to apologize, not to bow my head in defeat, but to stand tall, to prove to them and to myself that I could do this on my own. In the months that followed, life became a blur of exhaustion and loneliness. But little by little, things started to shift. At first, it was the quiet kind of change, the kind you don't notice, until you look back and realize how far you've come. I remember the sleepless nights when my eyes burned from exhaustion after working long shifts at the hardware store and the coffee shop. The days blended together, but I couldn't afford to stop. I had to keep moving, keep pushing, because if I stopped, I'd be lost, and I refused to be lost. Slowly, my perseverance started to pay off. The weight of the early days, the struggle, the doubt, the isolation began to lift. I had made it through the toughest days I had survived, and now it was time to look for something more. One afternoon, while I was working at the hardware store, I saw a familiar face, Santiago, the man who had helped me with a small project months ago. He was a regular customer then, but now he was the one who would change everything. He approached me casually, like it was just another conversation. But I could see the opportunity in his eyes. "Are you interested in working on home repair and renovation projects?" he asked. It was an offer I couldn't ignore. Santiago was a skilled tradesman, someone who had worked in the construction and repair business for years. But more than that, he was a mentor, someone who saw potential in me when I didn't even see it in myself. Under his guidance, I learned more than just the technical aspects of design. I learned how to manage projects, how to communicate with clients, how to bring ideas to life in a way I never thought possible. Santiago didn't just teach me how to fix things. He taught me how to make things whole again, how to build something from nothing. The first few days were a whirlwind, a blur of excitement and self-doubt. But with each project, I grew more confident. I wasn't the scared girl I used to be, unsure of every step. Clients started to compliment me on my work, and for the first time, I felt valued. I wasn't just another employee. I was a designer, a creator. I could feel the shift, the growth inside me. As time went on, I started getting my own design contracts. Life began to stabilize. I wasn't just scraping by anymore. I no longer had to rely on temporary jobs to make ends meet. I was building something real, something I could call my own. I was making my own choices, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was living in someone else's shadow. A year later, after completing my training program and earning my certification, everything was different. I had a steady job, a small but cozy apartment, and a sense of peace. I hadn't known in a long time. I had done it. On my own. I looked around, my apartment furnished with the money I had earned from the work I loved, and I felt a wave of pride wash over me. I had built this life, I had designed it, just like the spaces I had always dreamed of designing, and for the first time in my life, I felt in control. I wasn't just living, I was living on my own terms. Then one day, as I was working at home, my phone rang again. I saw her name flash across the screen. My mother? I hesitated. I had come so far, built my life without their interference, without their control. What would this call be? Would it pull me back? Would I let it? I took a deep breath and answered. "Isabella, are you okay?" Her voice was softer than it had been in the past. No more scolding, no more disappointment. I wasn't sure how to respond, but I decided to speak with confidence to not show any weakness. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm working and doing well." There was a brief silence on the other end. I could feel her hesitation. "We just want to know what you're doing and if there's anything we can do to help." Her tone was different, gentler, more open, but still I could sense the distance. They still didn't fully understand, and maybe they never would, but it didn't matter anymore. I had found my path, and it was mine. I wasn't going back to the life they had planned for me. I wasn't going to fall back into their world of expectations. I had created something real, something true, and nothing would take that away from me. "I've found the work I love," I said, "and I don't need your help. I'm doing it on my own." After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, reflecting on the call. Maybe they still didn't understand. Maybe they never would. But I didn't need them to. I had made my own way. I had found my own life, and that I realized was all that mattered. What mattered now was that I had found my passion, my work, and the life I had always craved. The future no longer filled me with fear because I knew I could build it on my own, brick by brick. And while my parents still couldn't fully understand my choices, I realized something crucial. I didn't need to prove anything to them anymore. I was building my own life, and that was all that truly mattered. One morning, as I was preparing breakfast in my cozy apartment, the phone rang. It was my mother. The sharp pang in my chest was instant. After all this time, she still hadn't reached out just to check on me. She only ever called when she needed something. My finger hovered over the screen, conflicted. I stared at it for what felt like eternity before finally answering. "How are you, Isabella?" Her voice was soft, but distant, as if all the things that had happened between us, every hurt, every unspoken word, had never existed. "I'm fine," I replied curtly, my voice betraying none of the discomfort that surged through me. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, thick with the weight of years of unspoken tension. Finally, she spoke again. "You know, your father still doesn't have a job. We're struggling. Can you help us out? A little?" Bitter resentment churned inside me. After all these years, they hadn't once really asked how I was doing. Not once had they cared about my life. Now, when they needed money, when they were in trouble, they reached out as if nothing had happened, as if everything between us had changed overnight. I knew exactly what this was, just another temporary problem they wanted me to fix, and then they would go back to their lives just like before. I didn't respond right away. I let the silence hang in the air. My fingers clenched around the phone. "I'm doing okay, but I can't help you financially." I said my words sharp. "I'm taking care of myself now. My mother didn't stop there. I understand, honey, but you know, we are family. Family is supposed to help each other. I always hoped you'd come back, but if you can't even help a little." Her words stung. They felt like a slap to my face. She was asking for something I didn't owe her. Everything that had happened, all the pain and frustration, every moment they pushed me away. They didn't deserve my help. And yet, there they were, asking for it, as if they had the right. I hung up the anger boiling inside me, but I didn't dwell on it. I didn't let it consume me. I wasn't going to let it. But the next day, while I was scrolling through social media, I saw it. A post from my mother. I stopped cold when I read it. Family is everything. No matter what, we must stick together through hard times. My daughter, Isabella, has become independent, but the family still needs her. We miss her so much and hope she understands and helps us during this difficult time. The words hit me like a brick. I felt cornered, as if she had deliberately used social media to pressure me. She knew I followed her. She knew I'd see it. She knew exactly how to make me feel guilty. And it worked for a moment. But only for a moment. I recognized it for what it was. Manipulation. It wasn't genuine concern. It wasn't love. It was a plea, a way to make me feel obligated to come back and solve their problems, to make me feel responsible for their struggles. It was a game they were playing, and I wasn't going to fall for it. The next day, my mother called again. I didn't answer. Instead, I took a breath, picked up the phone, and typed a message. "Mom, I know you need help, but I can't come back. I can't keep living the life you chose for me. I'm independent now, and I need to keep moving forward." As soon as I hit send, I felt something shift within me. A wave of relief washed over me, surprising in its intensity. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel regret. For the first time, I felt free. Free from their expectations. Free from their control. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, my phone lit up with messages from my siblings and other relatives. They had seen my mother's post and were all trying to convince me to help. One day, my brother even texted me telling me how my mother had cried because of the post and begged me to come back. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I had come too far. I had fought for too long to let myself be pulled back into that cycle of guilt and obligation. I had built my life from nothing, and I wasn't about to let old expectations tear it down. I decided not to respond to any more messages. My life wasn't tied to their demands anymore. I was on my own path, and I wasn't going to let anyone pull me off course. A month passed, and I could feel the stability I had fought for settling into place. I had landed a good job at a major interior design firm, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about where my next paycheck was coming from. I was secure. I was in control. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and I had done it on my own. I had my own apartment, a circle of good friends, and a job I truly loved. Finally, it felt like I was walking the path I had chosen. Not the one shaped by someone else's expectations. I had carved out my own life, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. But then, one day, the phone rang again. It was my mother. This time, her tone was different. Gone was the usual blame, the demands for financial help. This time, her voice was soft, choked with something I couldn't quite place. "Isabella, we need to talk," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Your father and we've thought a lot about what happened. We know we were wrong in how we treated you. We don't want you to feel pushed away from the family anymore. Can you meet with us? Just once." I didn't respond immediately. A rush of emotions flooded me. Confusion, anger, disbelief, and an odd sense of hope. After all these years, they had finally acknowledged their mistakes. But could I forgive them? Could I open up to them again? After everything I had spent so long learning how to stand on my own, to break free from their control. I wasn't sure I was ready to go back. I took a deep breath and replied, "Okay, Mom, but only if you and Dad agree to one condition." There was a pause on the other end of the line. My heart beat in my chest, heavy with the weight of my words. "I won't help if you don't respect my boundaries. I can't go back to living like we did before." After a long silence, my mother's voice returned, softer, almost relieved. "We will respect that, Isabella. We're willing to change." The meeting took place the following weekend. I met them at a quiet cafe, the kind with soft lighting and comfortable chairs, as if we were just ordinary strangers catching up. But we weren't strangers. Not anymore. They sat across from me, their faces no longer stern, but anxious, uncertain. My mother reached for my hand, her touch tentative, almost afraid to ask for what she'd once taken for granted. My father sat quietly beside her, watching me with the same quiet intensity he always had. "We know we were wrong." My mother began, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "We put all our expectations on you and never let you make your own choices. We're truly sorry. Your father and I understand now that you've grown up and you don't need us to decide for you anymore. We're still family and we want to start over." I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. Those words weren't new. I had heard similar things before, but this time, it felt different. The weight of the years didn't lift immediately, but I could see something in their faces, something I hadn't seen before. Regret. A recognition of the damage they had done. Forgiveness wasn't easy, not for all the years of hurt and frustration. But I knew that if I didn't give them this chance, I would never be able to move forward, and I didn't want to carry that burden. "I forgive you, Mom, Dad," I said softly but firmly. "But if we're going to start over, I need you to respect my life and my choices. I can't go back to living the way we did before. I'm independent now, and I don't want to be controlled or pressured anymore." My father nodded, his expression softening. "We will respect that, Isabella. We want you to feel free, and we're ready to change." It was a fragile truce, but it was a start. After that meeting, I decided to help them, but on my terms. I gave them the financial assistance they needed to keep their house, but I made it clear that they had to respect my boundaries. I also insisted that we attend family therapy, where we could openly express our feelings without fear of judgment. To my surprise, they agreed. They started attending therapy, working on improving our relationship and learning to respect each other's boundaries. The road wasn't easy. The process was long, and the changes were slow. But over time, small improvements began to show. They no longer tried to control me, and I no longer felt trapped by their expectations. For me, the most important thing was that I hadn't gone back to living under their control. I had built a stable, fulfilling life that I had chosen. I could work in the field I loved, live freely, and do what I wanted without fear of judgment. Even though our relationship had shifted, I was determined to maintain my independence, to keep living on my own terms. Our relationship could never go back to what it once was. But that didn't matter anymore. I had created a life I was proud of, and I had done it on my own. I had learned how to stand on my own 2 feet. And now every day felt like a triumph, not just because I had survived the tough times, but because I had dared to live authentically. Today, I have a stable, independent, and fulfilling life. My relationship with my family is still evolving, but I've set the boundaries. I need to stay true to myself. Through all the struggles, I've learned that perseverance and living true to oneself are the keys to building a meaningful and free life. What do you think of Isabella's journey? What would you do if you were in her situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel to hear more stories about family life and positive changes.